Hello everyone. Today I thought we could focus on a topic that I am sure almost everyone has experienced at least once, and that is lower back tension. And I would like to give you some tools and how to hopefully ease up on that tension, improve any lower back pain, and give you some strengthening and activating exercises and techniques and how to help us with that lower back, and using different muscle groups in the body to help us stabilize the lower back. So the first thing, if you feel your lower back is a little off, doesn't feel so great, the safe thing to do is to just come into a supine position, lying on our back, and just finding a neutral position here with the pelvis. So if you can shift that pelvis just a little bit from side to side, feeling that you're pulling one hip bone up on the on one side towards that same side shoulder, and then just moving, doing a little bit of a hip hike side to side very gently, and then feeling the weight of the body settle into the mat. Finding a neutral pelvis, meaning your pelvis is fairly level. If you think about your hip bones and pubic bone being the same line, having a slight hollow underneath that lower back. Depending on the posture, on the individual posture, you may feel like you're really arched or your lower back is almost touching the mat. We're trying to find a little space here, and that is different for everyone. Depends on how your lower back feels. And then we can extend one leg straight out in front of us, and we're pulling the opposite knee in towards our chest. That helps us to lengthen that lower back in a safe way. It helps us to open up the hip flexor on the opposite side. You can always place a big pillow, a yoga block, or even a small ball underneath your hips if that feels comfortable, to increase the stretch in the front of the hip. So we can use an exhale just to tuck that knee in a little closer. Inhale to release. One more time. You can do this as long as you want. We're going to do a few sets here. And we're gliding the opposite leg in and reversing this, pulling a knee to the chest as the other leg stretches out. So I would do here 5, 6 maybe on an exhale. So we're opening up the hip flexors. And letting it go. From here, we can grab the second leg, pulling both knees in. Now I would say we want to feel the weight on our tailbone right here, feeling there's a little space underneath that lower back at present moment. We're breathing in through the nose, and as we exhale, I want you to feel that lower tummy scoop in. Feeling it scoop in, helping us to actively lengthen that lower back. Releasing it as we breathe in, and then exhale to release and lengthen. Inhale, think of a neutral position, and then we feel that lower back actively lengthening while your tummy scoops in. And we'll do one more. Exhale to scoop in. Now making sure that the head's not over here, we want to try and keep that neck lengthened, that neck retracted to achieve that full stretch throughout the whole spine. And then we will release this, okay? From there, we're going to find our neutral again, just for the moment, feeling our hip distance stance, and then we're rolling into that lower back, peeling off one bone at a time. Now, if your lower back pain is acute, you may feel like this is not feeling so comfortable, going all the way up into that full bridge where we're reaching out into our knees. We may go part way up, okay? And then we work our way into this. What we want to make sure of is that we don't just lift from our lower back, that we start to rock back. And as we keep rocking, there's a moment you can feel your gluteals, you can feel your bum wants to connect, and I'm squeezing my buttocks to lift all the way up. Now I'm lifting from my bum, I'm not lifting from my lower back, and I start to reach into my knees. So that's actively opening up our hips. It works those hip extensors, okay, working those glutes is imperative. If there's anything happening in the lower back, and then rolling slowly back through bone by bone by bone. We can use an exhale to roll up. Inhale to hold, and exhale to roll back down. Let's do one more. Exhale to roll up. Inhale to stay, and exhale to release it back down. So now I've taken care a little bit of opening up the hip flexors, lengthening the hip flexors, because my ultimate goal is to activate my gluteals, so activating the bum really, to help me release any tension in the lower back. So if you feel your glutes are inactive, your hip flexors will become quite short, sometimes pulling on that lower back, your pelvis starts to shift. So we're going to take care of all the muscle groups surrounding the hip. So we're starting in a prone position, lying on our tummy. Now, if lying on your tummy doesn't feel great, you can always place a little pillow underneath your hip bones, okay? And then we would start with our hands underneath our forehead. We're trying to stay level through our hips. I'm going to kick that ball off. From there, we're going to make sure that we are feeling an even pelvis, so evenly weighted on both sides. What I want to avoid is that I'm sinking into my lower back once I lie down on my tummy. So really important is to engage our core from the front to keep that lower back fairly stable. Now the first thing to shorten that lever is to flex the knee. Now the moment I start to push my leg up, my pelvis starts to tip into that same side. So if you think about a pretzel underneath your hip bones, if you can imagine two pretzels underneath your hip bones, as soon as you want to lift that leg, you're going to crush that one pretzel. So we're trying to not crush it, we're trying to keep that pelvis level, so that may limit the range of motion in that side. So from there, I'm trying to use my exhale to engage my abdominals. As soon as my lower tummy draws in and my ribs draw in, I'm lifting this leg. This may feel like I've hardly lifted it off. I want to relax my upper back. Now I'm trying not to crush the pretzel underneath my hip bone. Trying to lift it just a little bit. Now the other leg is working a little to keep us stabilized. We're going to release that leg, breathing in. And then I start to engage my core again. Very important to engage the core before you lift that leg. To release and to lift. So it almost feels like I'm barely lifting my thigh up. So imagine I'm sliding a piece of paper underneath your knee. That's sometimes all you need to do. You can feel that you're lifting right from that little smiley face below your cheek. So this is what I want to activate to drive that heel up to the ceiling. Releasing on the inhale, and then exhale to lift. Now if this is bothering your lower back, place a pillow underneath your hips, maybe a thicker sofa cushion to help you release any of the tension. We're going to add another 4 and 3 and 2 and 1, and then releasing down. Now for some of us that are quite tight in the front of the hip, or the quadriceps are really tight, maybe that knee turns out a little bit. Maybe the knee turning slightly to the side will help you to fire up your glute a little bit more. So we're going to try another few with the knee slightly turned to the side, breathing in. Now you can see if it makes a difference. To feel the bottom kick in, release, release. So I'm really feeling that lower portion of my gluteal firing up. It's going to connect, and it helps me lift that knee off ever so slightly, and then I'm releasing it. Now we're going to try the other side. We're going to lift in hip distance parallel to begin with. Now if you feel this is impossible, you can turn your knee out right away. On the exhale, connect to your bum and start lifting. We're going to feel those ribs pull in. So in the end, I want to feel that I can isolate that little muscle group right here without having to feel or change anything that I set up. So I don't want to feel the shoulders come up. I don't want to feel the lower back starts to overarch. So that movement truly is quite small. And again, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. And then I turn out a little bit and immediately have a lot more range. You can feel the bum fire up. Start to lift for 3. Try to keep an even weight on my hip. 2. And 1. Now from here on, maybe we can bring our heels together. So think of a frog. You're going to feel that pubic bone touches the mat. So let your pubic bone press down slightly. As I start to exhale, I want to squeeze my heels. And as soon as I squeeze my heels, I can feel the bum fire up. So if you don't feel the glute firing, this is a great way to help you activate them. So on the exhale, squeeze your heels and you can feel them. I am certain you feel them 100%. Exhale to squeeze. And again. And we're going to add 2 more. And 1 more. Now if I start to lift both my knees up while squeezing my heels, I don't want to lift so high that I overarch my back. So again, this is quite small. I want to feel an even weight the front of the hip. My hip bones should not be digging in immediately. I want to feel my pubic bone kind of as my bony landmark. I want to feel that on the mat the whole time. And as soon as I squeeze my heels, I feel my bum. We're going to feel the muscle group that I need to use to lift my knees. So now I'm lifting my knees, very small range, really just lifting them a little bit to not change that lower back. Then releasing it. The nice thing about this, you don't have to go for a huge range of motion. You don't have to do a large movement to feel muscles working. So you just squeezing the heels is going to fire up the bum. Now that little lift is just going to add a little bit more, and that is more of a functional movement. It extends the hip. So if your glutes are not active enough, how are they going to extend your hip? So that job will then fall to other muscle groups along that same chain. So we're trying to use the bum to extend primarily for another 2. Relaxing my shoulders. 1. And releasing it. Whew. So that wasn't a lot of movement, but it certainly made me feel my glute firing. And then you can maybe top that off with a bit of a shell stretch at the end. Staying for a few breaths. And then rolling up. I'm going to add 2 more exercises to the hip complex. The second exercise, we're going to activate the other muscle groups around the hip. So if you can come down onto your side, you can place your head on a pillow or you can have your arms straight out. I'd like you to find one long line, shoulders, hips, leg, rib cage. And then I want you to bend your bottom knee for more support. Now the top leg, I'd like you to reach out. We've all done exercises like this before. What I don't want is that you're moving your legs so high that your hips hiking up on you, and it's going to crush that rib cage into the mat. What we want is we want to isolate our hip muscles without compromising anything else. So if you can keep your torso, if you can keep your hips fixed from moving, and then moving just the leg, that's what's going to fire those hip muscles, and we're trying to isolate those, okay? So if you can reach out, best way to do this is to lie against a wall. Make sure your shoulders, ribs, and hips are on the wall, the sacrum touches, so all of those body parts are on the wall. And then we're going to bring the leg against the wall. And you end up in a bit of hip extension already. So we're thinking glute med, medius and minimus, and we're going to try and fire those by reaching that leg away from us. Hand on the hip, always a good idea. That keeps us from hiking up the hips. So we're going to let that leg come up. We come up just slightly past hip height, and that is where I'm reaching a point. If I go any higher, my hip wants to hike up. Or if I keep my hip fixed, if I go any higher, my leg naturally turns out. So I want to find a point where I can lift without any of those two happening. Keeping my ribs connected, keeping my hip fixed, nicely stacked, and then I'm lifting to here, and I lower back down. And I start to exhale, I reach away, I'm stretching out as I lift, and I lower. Now what I like to imagine, if I don't use any props, imagine my leg is tied to the floor by an elastic band. And as soon as I start lifting it, I'm pulling that elastic band up. And I can feel the muscles firing up. Using an exhale, inhale, exhale, inhale. Do that one more time. Now from here, we're going to target a different muscle fiber. We're going to turn that knee slightly down, and then we lower. So now we're in internal rotation, and we lift. And I can tell you right now, that is going to give you the shakes, okay? That is already shaking. With internal rotation reaching just as far, we're going to add 3. We're going to keep it slightly shorter for the video. You can do, I don't know, 20. Do as many as you can. Take a break and then do another set or 2. And 1. And that's definitely harder than the one before. They're telling me that muscle fiber, that muscle group is a little weaker. We're going to bring it back and then bend the knees in. So number 1, number 2, number 3, we're going to keep our heels together and we turn the knee out. Our clamshells, okay? So we turn out, we want to make sure we're not rolling back. And if you're on the wall right now, there's no way you can roll back. So releasing it, that's why the wall is amazing. And open up. Releasing and rotating out. Now a little trick, if you can squeeze your heels together, you can feel your glutes are firing, your deep rotators are firing, and you can feel exactly where you're working from. Touching the muscle sometimes helps. And again. And release. Exhaling to lift and rotate outward. Inhale to release. One more time. And slowly release. So that is, there are some exercises that you can easily do. There's a million more. I'm trying to slide a few in next videos. But those are fairly essential for you to work on the hip strength. And then one muscle group not to forget, not to forget, are inner thighs and hip flexors actually working. So if we can, extend the bottom leg and just let your, I'm going to grab a ball quite quickly. You can extend the bottom leg and take the top knee either onto a ball or a pillow or a foam roller. You can just relax the top leg. And then I want you to extend the bottom leg as long as you possibly can. Again, the focus is not to change our torso. So as I start lifting my bottom leg, I don't want to sink into my ribcage. So I'm trying to keep a slight space underneath my ribcage. And as I lift my leg, I'm trying to reach into my heel. I'm trying to imagine that I'm standing on the floor with my foot. And then holding it here for a moment. Lifting from the very top of the leg, releasing it down. Breathe in and lift. Releasing and lift. So I go for 20, count up to 20. You may even go count down from 20 again. You can go by time, whatever works for you, okay? I'm going to feel my inner thighs firing to lift that leg. And once they start fatiguing, you will notice your foot starts to do funny things, okay? We're trying not to sickle the foot to the ceiling. So try to keep reaching out into that heel, keeping that slight space here. So we're trying to bring the leg towards the midline without changing the body. And up. Now maybe we've done 20 here. Let's say we've done 20. We're holding it and we're trying to maybe pulse it. Just a few extra little spicy pulses, okay? And maybe that's it for that may be it for your inner thighs already. You can release, take a break, and maybe add a second set, maybe a third set. And then we release it all the way down. And obviously, that whole sequence you're going to be doing on the other side. One last exercise for your hip flexors. We're going to be lying down. And then we've stretched those hip flexors before because they are chronically tight for most of us for various reasons. But we don't want to forget that we need to work them, okay? So we're trying to make sure we're level again, our pelvis is neutral, and we're taking one leg into tabletop. As that leg lifted up, I'm trying to bring the knee over my hip bone, 90 degrees, and now maybe that is it. If your hip flexors are weak, this may be all you need to do, okay? Now, if you want to add more work on, you can place your hand against your leg without rounding that lower back. We're going to press against your leg, feeling our hips firing up and then releasing it. Now bringing the leg slightly past your 90 degree and then pressing into it. And a few more. And releasing, okay? You can top that all off by rolling up one more time just to stretch it out. And then rounding